Hello and welcome back to Game Nation, where we bring you all things TCG. My name is Preston. I'm here with Sam. Say hello.
Hello, had to bring the Dressrosa shirts back. It just had to do it through the wallpaper gang.
Absolutely. Today we are talking about meta. You saw the thumbnail. We are going to be jumping into three decks that may gain popularity after the ban list hits. We talked about that ban list on the news. We'll probably talk about it again because it's quite interesting for this game. Um, but as a meta video, let's look at some decks that represent what could happen and might be more fun to play now that Whitebeard may drop in value.
Whitebeard was definitely the best, most
There's
popular deck.
one up. This
Yes.
is an ace deck. There you go. Let's get in there. This is an ace deck. Basically, the Whitebeard deck with a different leader. Few cards are different, but if you want to still play red and you already invested in red cards, there's only a few cards here that are going to be different than what you played with Whitebeard. A key one is Flame Emperor. It's a ace only card. So if you haven't bought this card, pick up on it. And it's really interesting. It's gonna kill an 8k or less, and then give your leader double attack and another 3k power. So it turns your leader into 8k and it's KOing something with 8k. It has a trigger. I'm not really considering the trigger important in my mind right now. KO's a 6k or less. I feel like hitting 8k plus double attack and 3k is a reason to keep it in your hand, unless it's dire. But really, um, this plus Crossfire, this plus Otama on a turn is KOing anything from a 10 cost to a or 10k power to 12k power, which is all of the cards that you probably need to worry about. It used to be Kaido, now it's Big Mom. It would hit your Whitebeard opponent character. It gives you options. Um, and with a small combo, you have enough Dawn to be able to do that. And then swing for double attack. Um, Pretty aggressive end game, from in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot here. I really like the structure of ace decks in general. It reminds me of Blue Purple Croc in a way. The deck is very aggressive, but it's also very defensive. There's only 8 cards here, essentially without counter power, due to Ace's leader effect. All of these event cards are very unique and very different. Crossfire is a really cool ad. I really into Seaquake. You're able to run Wipe Your Pirates at a full count. And the meat of red, we know Moby Dick was hit and Wipe Your will take a hit, but the meat of it is this Marcos. These Marcos are absolute pests. That's the reason we can run less character cards, because these Marcos are 2, 3, maybe even 4 times it'll come back.
Right.
They just stick around, and they're the reason this leader is able to be very successful. And then you have this plethora of really cool event cards. A lot of fun to build. You can go a lot of different ways with this deck. I think the only consistents have to be the Marcos and the Buggy. The Buggy synergizes really well. But you're able to play. Red has so many different. You can run Turntable. You can run. You could run all those guys, and it probably will be it'll work. So definitely give Ace a try. A lot of these event cards are really cool, really different red deck that we had been seeing, that we have been seeing. So really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you get to play it in a leader that was probably a little bit more undervalued in my opinion because Whitebeard just outshines it. And now the name Portragas D Ace is important because there's event cards that only work for him. Um,
Yep.
and Whitebeard may fall in value. We'll have to see how it happens, but if you want to still play red and you're tired of Whitebeard because it's just annoying, this is a really fun like control red power user deck that yeah, it's a new deck and I think if you want to move away from Whitebeard because you don't have your Moby Dick I almost said something else that was funny.
I, I
um
I think what he's getting at is you're able to structurally play red a little differently. Red has been
yeah.
very rushy, very tempo, very board heavily present deck. This red deck has very, like I said, it reminds me a lot of Blue Purple Croc, where you have a couple characters on board, but you're very
Hmm.
focused on the hand size and stuff like that. Do beware of Fujitora. Every time I see Ace, that's the first card I think of. Is like, be careful of Black, because you
Hmm.
want to keep a larger hand size for this leader. Try not to, because Black will punish you. But yeah,
Hmm.
really cool, really different way to play the red deck. Aces is probably a top five popular leader, but it definitely, I imagine it's going to rise. Maybe it'll be number one with Wiper going away. Only time will tell.
Yeah,
Um,
take it out and see what you can do with it.
oh, absolutely. And the next leader we want to get into is not necessarily affected by the ban list, but it is a leader that we definitely wanted to cover for a while. It is Katakuri. The tweet will always be linked down below, but we will have the dev link here for you because it's a little easier to see. But this is Mono Yellow Katakuri, one of the lists that we think is definitely going to get in some steam in this meta.
Yeah, and as the meta shifts because cards aren't playable, this leader might gain more value because of that. It, People like Katakuri, and I saw a lot of people saying Katakuri is great, Katakuri is great. It just wasn't performing, so I can't say it is. You might play it and it feels good, but if you run into a Whitebeard and just lose,
Feels
it's
bad.
not. Yeah, you're not S tier anymore. You're B tier. You're whatever. So now that again, it's not directly affected, but it might gain value because of
Right.
this ban list,
Yep.
and it has a lot of really cool stuff that it does. Just saying Cracker is such a great power play. You have to have less life than your opponent, but then you gain double attack and 1k power on this battle. That's really good to have a big swing. If you're at 0 life and they're at 2, and you hit them down to 0, and then you're able to do leader attacks or uh, big boss Lin Lin into it, then you're winning the game off of that big swing. You were losing, and then you used a big effect to finish out. They didn't expect to have to defend against Cracker, which gains up to that. So one down attach plus his effect is 7k. You could add more to that. And they're not going to be, if you can get rid of their defenders ahead of time, you're swinging into leader with this, and they can't block, they're going to have trouble. And then you can end the game at that point. You might only need to use it once, but also you could use it early, get yourself low, use it again, get yourself low, and just put that pressure on all the time.
Yeah, I think they're when we ranked yellow. One of our concerns was 2K combos. They are forced to play. They're not very good. These cards probably won't get played, and when you play this deck, they're the only 2K options. The theme deck is coming out. You're going to get another one. I think that's going to greatly help this deck as well. The concern definitely was the late game. These are probably two of the better late game combos in the game. Katakuri's crazy answer to Marco if you're playing against red, and I think that's gonna be the theme. If you're not playing Marco, you need to have a good answer for Marco, and Katakuri is definitely a good answer for that. It's just getting there. I think that was always the issue, is getting to this late game, and I think these are the best yellow cards that we can play. Cracker, Smoothie, and Pedro are definitely the best trigger cards we have. Um, I think the missing piece was this Katakuri SR. Actually, I think this starter deck card is was a little oversighted. I think when we were looking at these decks, I think this card was very good, but I think the fact that it didn't have combo power, and it was also matching the same placement with Cracker and Smoothie, which are the better 4 drops in my eyes still. But having this rush option gives us just a little more aggression, and the missing of Moby Dick, I think, makes this deck a little more interesting. Definitely should be on your radar. This Thunderbolt card, especially off the trigger, is dealing with Marco as well. They'll have to discard a card, but coming off of your trigger, that's a nice card, as well. It causes them to either let it die or, you know, they have to pay a card. And then Katakuri, the leader, gives you so much game knowledge. If you're not trying to set up yourself with your top card and sending it to your life, you can always peek at your opponents. That's just one more card that you know that they have. Yeah, I really like this yellow deck. I think it has good tempo. I think it has a lot of options. It'll definitely get better when we have maybe something to play here in the 6 drop area.
Hmm.
Definitely has room with more cards. It definitely can only get better. So definitely put it on your radar. Give it a try. Really cool deck.
Yeah, I think it's gonna gain popularity, and it was already exciting to see people want to play this deck anyways.
Yep,
And I think people already are excited for it, and we're already playing it, and I think it's just going to gain value now.
absolutely.
Um,
And transition. If you were not thinking about playing a set 3 leader and you wanted to play a random blue starter deck leader because it's having success, well, look no further because we found a crocodile list that is winning tournaments.
yeah, this is super interesting. And I think it is a direct response to Marco.
Hmm.
Um, I think that would be even more true if there was more bounces. Like if you were playing Overheat and Teach, that might be even more true. Which are options if you're trying to play that counter meta stuff, because you're gonna want cards that don't KO the Marco, but just get him out of your way. And this leader can do that. It's a little costly with the minus Dawn, but the rest of the cards are supporting it. You got a lot of draw power from set 3. You got a lot of options from the first 2 sets. And this in game going Crocodile Mihawk is a really good top end. 6K, 6 drop 8K Mihawk. Yikes, that's incredible. And then your 9K 9 drop 9K Mihawk has an incredible effect. So you're really getting into this power. You're hitting it with a big power, and you're doing good card effects. And I think that's where this deck is being utilized.
Yeah, we're you definitely could run Teach and Sobbles and Dofi. Those are definitely cards that definitely fit this archetype. We're specifically targeting Marco here. The Crocodile Leader says 5 drop. The 3000 Worlds says 5 drop. We're specifically targeting this man. Sentomaru is making a nice grand return as well. This card didn't see a lot of value because green was running rampant. They had a lot of cards to tap them. Cat Viper, Izo, all those guys. That has fallen very, very far down the meta list. So I mean, Sentomaru gets to see the light of day again, just like in the manga. So he's here. And the reason we're not seeing Dofi, I think, the 7 drop, is we're seeing this Mihawk instead, as our targets for Dofi is a little slim. If we're looking at the red meta, the highest 7 drop you can bounce is Ace. And that is not an ideal card to bounce. You don't really want to send a rusher that minuses back to your opponent's hand. So instead, we play this really beefy Mihawk, 6 drop 8K. And if we're bouncing something the last turn, we're going to have a little less mana the next turn. So having these lower cost guys that are strong is a good counter option. We're adding really powerful cards like Kaya. We talked about it last video. Kaya is definitely one of the better blue cards that got added. And then it's just set 1. This is set 1. These are all cards that you probably already own. So it's really cool to see this guy make a return as a counter meta option. Now, if the meta changes, this leader might not be as prevalent, but if you're seeing a very high Marco count at your tournaments, this is definitely a really cool counter meta option.
Yeah, absolutely is a great option to counter the big red flow that is coming through. And as Whitebeard leaves and Ace is still going to probably be relevant, even Zoro, you're going to end up wanting something that beats those. And I love the idea of counter meta Crocodile. It just flows off the tongue, and the cards are good. The thing is, the cards are good. You have the draw. Like it's funny that all of the cards I want to talk about are Mihawk cards, but the 2K counter Mihawk from the starter deck is a really good card.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly outclassed by Kaya that can just get the effect, but a 5K attacker on turn 2 that ends up being a 6K attacker when he's swinging is really good. The interesting thing, like as you were talking about Sentamaru, is they're only running the vanilla pacifista, which I wonder why they chose not to pick up the blocker also. I
Tempo.
guess with that's fair, but also they have Hancock, Law, and the other the Doflamingo character card as blockers. So maybe they didn't need it. They just wanted to play the tempo play to have another attacker, um, and a strong one at that. So it's just an interesting build. Gecko pulling back a lot of the cards from the grave is also great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 3000 Worlds is dope. High Dawn cost, but I mean, if it's getting rid of Marco,
Worth.
we, we talked about the Ace deck getting rid of Marco, and it was much more expensive to
Oh
do.
yeah, oh yeah.
So
And there's just power here, right? Like the 4-drop vanilla, the 5-drop vanilla, the 6-drop vanilla. It doesn't get much more powerful than this, and so I think this, with that alone, you have a decent matchup in unblock as well. So it's really, this is a really interesting deck, and it's really cool to see these cards make a return in this counter meta format. So really, really, really exciting stuff. I love creative players like that. Super cool.
yeah, finally getting to a counter meta also.
Yes, finally.
We've seen a lot of meta stuff. We haven't seen a lot of stuff that's going to be able to counter that cleanly. And I think this is the first look at something that could counter those cards. Which is interesting to think about is the US and the rest of the world is playing set two. Can this factor into the first wave of Whitebeard? Can we wipe out Whitebeard with this stuff? Or do we just have to play Smoker? Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just everything else has 3 searchers, right? Like it's so hard to combat that. And even looking at this deck, like there's not a lot of search power. There's options for dead draws here. Kaya really helps that, drawing 2, discarding 2 from turn 1. So maybe that will act as a mediator, but it still has that inconsistency flex to it. So that's why I still don't know how comparative it is, but it's nice to see this archetype finally emerge from a game. It took 3
Mhm.
sets, but I think it's we're starting to see the balance a little bit. So that's great news.
Yeah, Hancock can also draw on block, so that
Yeah.
doesn't suck.
No.
It has a hand size restriction, but I mean, if you're playing through and you're countering, you most likely can get a Hancock proc on that also.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, this is super cool. I'm super excited to see how the rest of the meta shapes up. I hope to see more of these decks in the coming weeks. That would be super cool to see a drastic change in the meta just because Bandai says you can't play this deck anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that
but
you
yeah,
mentioned Smoker too, because I think Smoker is this version of this deck now, and they do seem similar. They both don't have a lot of searchers, so and they just have raw power. So it seems like a lot of similarities there. So that's a pretty cool read.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think is gonna pop up after the ban list. Let us know in the comments. I'm excited to see what you guys are playing and what you're gonna do after Whitebeard is gone.
Gone. It's not
I would
gone.
I would imagine that the US will follow suit shortly after set three also. So are you already preparing for your set three deck now?
Yep.
Let us know. Would love to hear what you guys are thinking now. But with that being said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you around. Thank you. Peace.
Bye guys. Oh man, Magellan baby. I'm gonna make counter Magellan right now. Counter meta Magellan.
No.
I already have Dev open.
I guess you can always give your opponent a free round. It's fine.
There's the counter meta. Counter myself out of the tournament. Let's go bowling.